ever since going ketovore carnivore, I have no lower back pain anymore. Like for years, it's completely gone. So that's a big one for me. Sleep has improved because I actually got less sleep when I went carnivore. I think it's just because I didn't need the sleep. But then when I quit caffeine a couple of months ago, I noticed a dramatic change in my sleep. So we could talk about supplements too, because I don't supplement except with electrolytes, basically. That's all I supplement with.
All right, folks, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, finally. It's the end of the week. We've got John with us today. He's going to share his success story with us. John, welcome. Good morning. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Dr. Baker?
My neck's a little sore. I got crunched up in jiu-jitsu last night, so I'm a little kind of working that out. But other than that, I'm doing pretty good. Where are you located, man?
I am in Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh, Boca Raton. That's a nice area. Probably hot and humid right now, though.
Oh, yeah. Really hot and humid.
Yeah, I just got back from Houston, and it was hot. I was in Boca last year. There's a friend of mine that's one of the carnivore community folks, and he's real, I don't know, maybe you've run into him. But anyway, I guess we'll just get started with your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I am a retired middle school teacher. I taught for 34 years. I just retired last year. Let's see, I taught language arts, social studies, video production. I was raised in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia, moved to Maryland to teach for a little while. And then I moved to South Florida here in Boca around 2001. And as I started to age and get into my 40s and my 50s, so did the weight come on. And so like many Americans, I tried all the diets and the weight loss and every little scheme possible. And then I eventually evolved into carnivore, which is where I am now, and had great success.
Okay. And so with the weight, and gosh, being overweight has become more the norm than you think about it. Right now in America, over 70% of the population is overweight and obese. Yeah. So it's more likely you're obese than not. So it's so common now. And it obviously used to didn't be that way. When I was a kid, we had the fat kid. Now it's freaking 2 out of 3 kids are fat or something like that. It's kind of ridiculous. Yeah. So in addition to gaining too much weight, were there any other things going on? Any inflammation, mood?
I made a list because I have a YouTube channel that I started when I retired because I've had so much success that I wanted to share with people so they could possibly experience the great benefits as well. So first of all, I lost about 40 pounds pretty much immediately. I went keto first and knew nothing and started eating just keto foods, everything, vegetable, fruit, plant, and carnivore, even seed oils. I didn't know anything about not eating those. And then as I watched a lot of YouTube videos, doctors like yourself, other people on the internet, I started learning and growing what else I needed to stay away from. So I made sure I cut out all the seed oils. I made sure that I was eating as low carb as possible, but I still had a lot of vegetables and I, of course, cut out a lot of the fruits because of the carbohydrates and the sugars. Then I was doing very heavy keto, a lot of oxalate, a lot of dark chocolate, a lot of spinach, a lot of rhubarb, you name a high oxalate food. And I was eating it because it was low carb. And maybe it built up or whatever, but I had a horrible kidney stone adventure in the hospital. And then, of course, I educated myself and just read up on the oxalates and realized I probably did this to myself by overindulging in those kinds of plants. So I cut out the black pepper, the iced tea, the spinach, and all the high oxalate foods. And I started learning by watching oxalate people and learning that I may be one of those people that really can't process it well. So I have to slowly, over the years, get this out of my body. And it's been about 4 years, and I'm hoping that I have most of it out. I am pure carnivore now. I even stopped coffee just as an experiment to see how I would do without the caffeine. And I've noticed dramatic improvements in my sleep. And I just feel like I'm running on high test fuel. I feel night and day between keto and carnivore. And of course, between the standard American diet and carnivore. Now, some of the things I've noticed over the 4 years, I had severe lower back pain, and I had an x-ray done, and I think the space between my plates was getting smaller and nothing you can really do about it. And for years, I just suffered. I had a TENS unit. I would walk around school as the teacher with the TENS unit on. I turned it up. I had to roll myself around on a chair in the hallway because it was so bad. And this would come and go. Later, I'm finding out it was probably inflammation. Or someone shared with me, it could be that I had such a fatty liver that maybe it was pressing on a nerve ending near my spinal cord. I don't know. But ever since going ketovore carnivore, I have no lower back pain anymore. Like for years, it's completely gone. So that's a big one for me. Another one, I gained muscle because I work out regularly, and I noticed I was able to put on muscle a little bit easier on carnivore. I have atrial fibrillation, which was diagnosed about 7 years ago. I was on 2 particular medicines and with a horde of side effects. And when I went keto and then ketovore and now carnivore, I am noticing that I took myself off the medicine slowly, and I don't go into AFib barely ever. Years, maybe once I'll pop into it for 5 minutes and I'm out of it again. And I can sense it. I can tell myself. I can feel my heartbeat very easily. So I think my atrial fibrillation almost improved 100%. I had all my life obsessive compulsive disorder with biting my nails. A lot of people bite their nails. I did it when I was in first grade. I would bite my nails, bite my cuticles. And I noticed as an adult, I literally couldn't stop myself. I just ripped and teared. And I realized, again, through my own education and learning about what OCD is, that this must be or could be a type of OCD. Without even attempting to stop on my own, when I went low carb, eventually into carnivore, I just didn't have the urge to do that anymore. It stopped. That obsessive compulsive disorder just evaporated. Must have something to do with the ketones in my brain. My emotional health, I used to be depressed every once in a while. I have even been on antidepressants, SSRIs. And I'm telling you, having ketones is the exact opposite of being depressed. I am happy and up every single day. Barring a death or something in the family where you have normal emotions of sadness, I am a happy person, and it has been just amazing. Emotional health. My overall skin has improved. I used to have some pimples and acne and blemishes, all gone. Sunburns. Now, I watched a video, I forget who it was, Dr. Ken Berry and some other guy, and it was fascinating. I learned that once you're off of seed oils for a while and you're only consuming healthy saturated fats that come in beef and butter and dairy, it takes a few years, but eventually everything gets replaced in your body, and your body is making skin cells from all of the healthy fats. I don't get a sunburn anymore at all. And I live here in South Florida. It's just freaking amazing. I get tan, but no more burns. And I don't fear the sun, and I don't slather lotion on anymore like everybody else does, because it just feels great. I'll be done with my list in a few minutes, if that's all right.
No, keep going. That's fun. It's wonderful. Awesome.
Let's see. Improved teeth and gums. Okay. I've had enormous amounts of work done on my teeth, and I've had gingivitis, and they can test the pockets, the dentist, by putting metal tools, and they tell you how deep your gums are and say that you're very close to having very severe gum issues. And I've had a lot of crowns and cavities and just a ton of work. Ever since going ultra low carb, I call it ultra low because it's basically carnivore now within the last year. I go to the dentist, they can't even find the tartar or the calculus or the plaque. They're scraping a little bit, and they're just so amazed at how clear and how good my skin is, and my gums and my teeth. So I used to go every 6 months. Now I just go once a year for the hell of it. I don't even need to do that. My gums and teeth are amazing. Sleep has improved because I actually got less sleep when I went carnivore. I think it's just because I didn't need the sleep. I'm sleeping less. My body may not have required as much rest. But then when I quit caffeine a couple of months ago, I noticed a dramatic change in my sleep, obviously because of the adenosine receptors and all that stuff. I read up about that. I could give you all my blood work if you want, because I just got back from the doctor. I just had my blood labs, and we can go there if you want to go there. So just lots of improvements that I want to rave about. I want to tell other people so they can plant the seed. And if they want to make some changes, they can start, because that's how I started. I listened to people like, oh, interesting. And it planted a seed in my head, and I made some changes. I don't eat anything out of plastic. I cook in my cast iron skillet, getting a reverse osmosis water filter for under my sink. I'm trying to, in every little category, improve my health, and I feel it. I feel better off of the toxins and the pollutants and the trash and the carbs and the seed oils.
That's quite a list. And so, first of all, I wanted, because you said I transitioned to a more strict carnivore, and I continue to get improvements. And because a lot of people are critical, saying you don't need to do that. You could eat it. You could eat healthy vegetables and fruits and a little bit of clean, natural food, which you were clearly doing. I assume you weren't eating Rice Krispies and Snickers bars, which many people do, unfortunately. And yet you were still not quite to the degree of health you wanted to and notice continued benefits. So I think that points out that, because I always get people saying, well, you don't need to do carnivore, you can do this, and nothing wrong with eating some vegetables. For some people, that seems to be the case. That's for whatever reason, for however long it is. A couple comments. I don't know that the fatty liver would directly impinge upon nerve endings to any significant degree, although it may set you up metabolically, where we have this inflammatory cascade, and we see that with obesity. If you have excess body fat on you, you basically have inflammatory cytokines circulating at higher levels in general. So just losing that 30 pounds is part of that. And then, of course, bringing inflammation down by making the further dietary shifts. Probably, I would suspect that the back pain relief was an inflammatory thing. The AFib thing is interesting. I've seen it before. I've seen other people talk about AFib getting better. And again, that's another, for those who aren't familiar, atrial fibrillation is a electrical disturbance of the heart where it causes the top little chambers, the atriums, to flutter, and then it leads to things like clotting and things like that, because you have abnormal blood flow. And it's often treated with medications, or we shock people into rhythm and things like that. But I think perhaps, and I'm just speculating because I don't know for sure, but I think perhaps as the neurologic health gets better, perhaps this is largely a cardiac nervous system issue, electrical issue. And I think as those nerves get healthier, maybe they become less glycated or damaged by, or as you mentioned the oil composition. And we do know, because I have heard many people talking about improved sun tolerance. Now, I don't know if you could lay out in Arizona for 12 hours shirtless and not get a burn, but I think your tolerance improves significantly. Mine has too, but I don't want people thinking that you can just lay in the sun and never get burned, because I think there is a point, but I think it's improved tremendously. But and I don't know who you were in, I know there's a guy named Tucker Goodrich that likes to talk about oils, and it may be who you heard from. He's done extensive, research on that. And it's pretty clear that the type of oils that we consume, whether it's animal fat or these vegetable oils or whatever, they do get incorporated into our tissues, and they go into our membranes, and they change the nature of that, and it changes the characteristics and the properties of those things. And they can take years to resolve themselves. And so it's one of those things where a lot of people, once they go carnivore and remove some of these things, they get better and better up to several years. So that's an exciting part, that you may still continued improvements in health. And like when I went carnivore, I didn't even think I was sick, but I just noticed, wait a minute, my digestion's a lot better. Because it was so common, I didn't even realize it was an illness. And now you see all these weird things like improved sun tolerance and less itchiness in the skin and less belching and less hiccups. And you're just like, okay, I thought that was normal human existence. And you find out maybe it's not. You said you got a YouTube channel, you want to share this. And I'm glad you're doing that. This is how this message has spread from day one. It's been people sharing results. It's not somebody saying this is theoretically what you should do. And it's just people having real world results and sharing that. And I think we live in a time where that's possible now with social media, until the censorship people don't shut that down too, because it's threatening to whatever profits for somebody. What was it? Because you said you're doing pretty good on keto, and a lot of people have come from a ketogenic diet. A lot of people come from the opposite, vegan and vegetarian diets for some reason, I think. But when you were doing keto and doing presumably better, what made you say, hey, let me just tighten this up a little? What were the symptoms that were like, I'm not better yet?
Okay, when first I did keto, from whatever my knowledge and understanding of it was, and as I explained earlier, my knowledge grew as I watched and learned from a lot of nutritionists and doctors. So I slowly tightened up. I just took more things out. I started taking out the seed oils. Then I took out pretty much most of the vegetables, and I was only having broccoli and asparagus. And then I took out the broccoli and asparagus, but I was doing avocado because I liked the fiber. We were told there's that whole controversy. Is fiber important? Is fiber not important? Maybe we can talk about that a little bit. But I was experiencing that the fiber was helping me move my bowels better, and the healthy fats in the avocado. And avocado was the last thing I took out. I just kept doing these little N=1 experiments, just like with the coffee. Let's take this out and observe my body for a couple of weeks and see what happens. And I felt better. I lost a little more weight. Not that I needed to lose any more. I think I'm at my optimized weight right now because it's pretty much held steady. But taking the avocado out, I don't need it. I feel a little bit better without it. So that was the last to go. And then the coffee actually was the last to go. So I just started taking one more thing out, which puts me into the carnivore category. When I go out to a restaurant, I will say very confidently and proudly, I would like to have the ribeye. Please tell the cook not to put any canola oil. They have to hear the word vegetable oil because they don't understand it. Please do not put canola oil, soybean oil, or any margarine on your grill. I want my steak cooked on a dry grill. Don't put any sauces or seasonings or spices on the top. And then they ask me 4 times, are you sure you don't want a vegetable? Don't you want a side? Don't you want some bread? And I look them straight in the eye. Just the meat, please, like you would do on your own grill at home. And I don't eat out that much anymore, but they'll bring out the big old piece of meat the way I want it. Usually I have my own Redmond real salt that I bring because I love it. Sometimes I'll even bring ghee in a little container because I like to add a little extra butter. So I just eat meat now. Sometimes, like just now, I had my lunch before I went on here early today. I had some ground beef and 4 pastured eggs, 2 extra pastured egg yolks, Redmond salt, a little bit of, I love salmon, wild sockeye salmon like you have up there in Washington. So I buy some wild sockeye salmon, I have a little tiny portion of that, up my omega-3s. And I say after I finish every single meal, I'm so full and so satisfied. And all I did was take out a couple of little things from keto to ketovore to carnivore. So now I'm just carnivore just by progressing into it. And everything runs better. I sleep better. I feel better. I think I look better. My attitude is better. Emotional health is even just another step better than keto and ketovore. So that's my answer for that.
If you don't mind, how old are you these days?
I'm 58.
58. Okay. So you're just, I'm 56, so we're similar in age. And you clearly, you're feeling good with this. How would you, let's go back, I don't know, standard American, whenever you were on your standard diet, how much different do you feel? You feel, a lot of people say they feel younger or there's some other benefits. Can you 1 out of 10, how you felt then versus now, or is there some sort of a comparison?
Absolutely. 1 out of 10 on the standard American diet before I started any of this, I would say I felt like maybe a 5 or a 6 if I was healthy, but I got a lot of colds. I got a lot of lower back pain problems. I would just have aches and pains and thinking I caught it from the students. Just all my life, like everybody else, almost in a fog, mental fog. My mental clarity was always almost AD. I don't think I had AD, but I had all my life, I struggled to concentrate when I had to study for a test or pass something to continue my teaching certificate, just an enormous amount of effort to concentrate. And that was just regular for me. When I stopped the massive amount of carbohydrates and sugars and seed oils, I noticed an improvement because I had to recertify for my last teaching certificate. And that was the biggest aha moment. I'm like, this is amazing. I am reading through all of this information, taking all of these quizzes and tests and writing my paper to get my recertification like that. Like I was breathing. It was so easy. And I would say that's the biggest aha moment is I had that focus because of the ketones and the lack of inflammation. I don't know. In other categories, it would be, I feel like Superman today. I feel 28 years old. I don't feel 58. I feel like I did when I was in high school, when I had no issues or problems. Everything. I can jump up and down and do things around the house. I do a lot of maintenance around my house. I'm having a blast feeling young again. And that's the difference between the standard American diet, in my opinion, and the carnivore diet. And of course, if you do keto and ketovore, it's just amazing. And when I talk to people, they're coming from the other end. And for me to just say, you've got to go carnivore, it's too harsh for them. So they will ask questions and I just listen. And I try to remember what it was like back then when I was like that. And I would give them, if they ask, I'll say, lower your carbs, just count the carbs and go low. Like you start with one thing. That's how I started. You start with one thing. And then if they want to ask a little bit more, I would say, read the ingredients. If it has anything you can't pronounce, if it has seed oils, preservatives, additives, colorings, flavorings, all that crap, don't eat it. Shop around the edges of the grocery store. And then if anybody asks, I progress slowly on because people don't want to just go to carnivore right away. Most people, they think it's too hard or too harsh. And I guess some people can try it, but just quitting smoking or quitting alcohol, some people need to wean off very gradually and slowly do something so that it becomes part of their routine. Like right now, my routine is what it is, but it wasn't this way 4.5, 5 years ago. It was a completely different routine of eating and exercising. And the health benefits are night and day.
Yeah. And like I said, I've obviously seen this sort of story play out over and over again over the years. And it's wonderful to always see it. It always puts a smile on my face when I see that. So obviously there's critics of the diet. I believe me, I see them every day. And one of the things they'll say, it's unaffordable. You can't afford to eat meat. How is that working with you? Has your expense gone up dramatically to do this? Or is it about the same or less? Or what's the story on that?
And that's a great question because I get that question from some people. And I haven't done the calculations. Before, of course, I bought cereal. I bought Pop-Tarts. I loved Pop-Tarts. Frozen pizza. I bought all the corn chips and crisps and cookies and cakes. And I ate many times a day. If you were to do the calculations and add that up along with whatever meals you ate, I just know, I haven't done it yet, but I know it's more expensive than when I go in the store now and push my cart around the edges and I just go right to the meat section and I start picking up meat. I read the expiration date and stuff. And when I get to the checkout, you look in my cart, I've got goat cheese. I love goat cheese. I put that in my omelet every day. I have a ton of eggs, pasture-raised eggs. I don't care how much they cost. It's worth it. And a lot of ground beef. I love lamb. I'll do lamb chops, lamb loin, lamb shoulder. We have a crock pot. I have a Traeger grill. I smoke my meat outside. It's a lot of meat, some cheese. And I'm trying to think of what else I put in that cart. And if I were to add that up, yeah, that bill's going to be steep, but then I'm not going to the store again for another 2 weeks or a week and a half. And I'm not buying snacks and I'm not going back for short trips to get more snacks at a convenience store or whatever. I don't drink soda. I don't drink fruit juice. I used to do all that. So I honestly think it's more affordable to eat in a healthy way than to eat in the standard American diet way. Some of the items may be a little more expensive, but they satiate you. You don't want to have a snack. I'm not going to eat until dinner tonight. And sometimes when dinner rolls around, I'm still not hungry. Sometimes I don't eat. I make myself eat 2 meals a day though.
That is a very important concept of the satiation, because a lot of people, why they struggle with so many diets is because they're just hungry and you're restricting and you just feel like you're just missing out. And I think that's one reason why a lot of people have success with this is due to the satiety factor. So, well, let me go back, because you said you were a school teacher. You noticed when you were recertifying, when you changed your diet, you noticed incredible increases in clarity and concentration. And I don't know what grades you were teaching, but I can imagine you just look back retrospectively and say, I've had all these kids, probably half of them didn't pay attention half the time, or they were distracted, or do you think the diet was impacting our children's ability to think and perform cognitively and succeed academically? Is that something that you've ever given thought to?
I absolutely have. Last year, it was not this last June, the June before is when I retired, and I was just starting strict carnivore at that point. But I was doing keto for 2 years before that. And I would go through the cafeteria. They serve the kids a free breakfast when they get off the bus. And it's disgusting. All right. It's a fried stick of French toast. And it's, what do you call them? The potatoes that are fried. It's all fried. It's all breaded. It's all carbohydrates. And then they bring their own candy. Every kid has their bag of candy in their backpack. Every kid, almost every kid. It's a lot of junk, the juice boxes. So absolutely, I see the kids not being able to concentrate, a lot of ADD, a lot of ADHD, which controversially, I don't know if I could talk about that, but is it really, or are they just hopped up on all the sugar and they can't concentrate? It goes through my mind. And I really believe that a lot of these kids, also the obesity, they just look, I don't know if it's because now I'm real conscious of my body and how great I look, but just everybody around me, especially the kids, they're obese. There's a lot of morbid obesity too, and they're waddling around. And then I watch that child sit down and stuff their face with all the carbs and sugar and seed oils. It just breaks my heart. And what can I do? As the middle school, I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I walk around, they're 12, 13, 14 years old. I walk around and I can't say anything. That's not my place. The cafeteria is serving the food. The parents are stuffing their backpacks with other food. That was probably the hardest thing for me as an educator, because I like to give people messages that help them improve their lives. And I think maybe it came out in some of my teaching a little bit about nutrition, but I had to be careful because then I'd go off topic and the kid would tell the parent would call the school. You shouldn't be talking about this. So it's tricky, but I have absolutely seen it at school, how it affects the kids. They can't concentrate. They are hyper and they're obese.
Yeah, it's really tragic, and we see that, and that's just it's becoming more. And then they go from obese and hyper and not concentrating to then they start having issues with depression and mental health disorders and all the horrible stuff that's associated with that. And I don't know what your personal situation is, but family, friends, social surrounding people, have they received you in a positive light? Were they critical of this? What's been your experience with the people around you?
Very noticeable. I go to parties, go to events. There's a buffet. I look for the rolled up lunch meat and cheeses if I'm going to have any, or basically I eat before I go so that I'm not hungry. Or I'll have a plate in my hand, but I won't eat it. If they hand out the birthday cake or whatever, I'll even hold the plate while everybody's doing it. But obviously I'm not touching it. A lot of people say, oh, but it's your birthday or it's a special occasion or don't hurt their feelings. I do it a different way. I move around it, because I just won't put that stuff in my body for any occasion, for any reason, even my birthday. I just won't do it. It's not worth it. But socially, it can be awkward. My closest friends, they know me and they know I'm doing this, and they think I have a lot of willpower and they think it's difficult. And they keep saying the phrase, oh, I don't know how you do it. You have a lot of strength and willpower. Good to you. And then they continue to eat their rice and their beans. And I'll say it's really easy, guys. Once you get it out of your system, you don't crave it anymore. They don't realize how easy it is, but they think it's hard. But they accept me and they understand that I'm going to order different things if we're out. And family, I think they think I'm a little crazy. I had my brother over here, I think, what was it, 6 months ago, and he and his wife, They went shopping and filled up a section of the kitchen just for them. And it made me look, this is how I used to eat. And the amount of prep time that they took to cut and chop their vegetables and their fruits and the cereal that they ate every morning. And then when we had meals, we smoked some amazing ribs on the grill. They had some of it, but they were like avoiding all the fat because they were fat phobic. And I'm sitting there ripping the collagen off the bones and just enjoying my ribs. They think I'm a little weird and they don't want to ask me questions because they know I'm going to do what I'm doing right now is go off on a tirade. And they don't want to hear my lecture. So they know to stop, to avoid asking me, because I get excited about all the amazing improvements that I have. So they never talk about it. And I know that's why they don't talk about it. So that's the situation with friends and family.
Yeah, and that's the exact same, because people, I can never give up bread. It is surprising that once you take the plunge and you do it for a few months, for many people, it becomes so easy. It's just, I don't want that stuff anymore. And that's because people ask me, don't you get bored of eating the same thing every day? And don't you want to cheat? And I think the concept of giving yourself a treat, if you care about yourself, why would you do something that's clearly going to be harmful to you? Because it's a cheat. And I get it, people do that. But it's just, to me, that's not a treat. That's just, don't you miss damaging yourself? Not really, not that much. So it's an interesting concept. And I say, do I get a cheat meal? I eat a cheat meal every day. I have ribeye steaks most days. And it's just like, to me, that's delicious. That's a real treat. And I look forward. I've got I've got, and that just reminds me, I didn't put mine in this morning. After this meeting, I got to run down and throw some in to get them thawed out. Usually I have them cooking right now, and I'm like thinking about it, but I've got 2 hours before I get to eat them. What about, you mentioned you had some lab work. Now, let's go into that, because I think, I don't know what your labs show, but what have you noticed? What trends have you seen? How has it changed between, I don't know how long you kept them, standard versus keto versus carnivores? Any significant things stand out to you?
Okay, yeah. I've had the same doctor for not the whole time I've been here in South Florida, but about 15 years of the years. So I have a nice set of labs that I can compare standard American diet, and then when I started keto, and then till today. So over time, I've noticed my HDL has gone up. I have a nice high HDL around 70, 75, 79. I asked my doctor the last 4 years, because I knew what it was, the hemoglobin A1C. I wanted to know how my body was handling the sugar glycation. I started that test 4 years ago. And interestingly, it started out at 4.8 when I went keto. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it was before because I never got it tested, but I just got my labs back and it's going up a little bit. And I found out it's because maybe my red blood cells are living longer, or my hemoglobin's not dying as fast. So that 3-month measurement period, it's not showing the glycation. So I'm not worried about that because I'm still like 5.2, 5.1.
Yeah, let me just interject in there, because it could be the case. And you can get a reticulocyte count and see. And if you got a lot of reticulocytes, that means you're turning over cells more quickly. And if you got a very few reticulocytes, then perhaps you're living longer. And I think one way you could get that lab, it may help you with that. There's a fructosamine. There's a lot of people will wear a CGM or get a finger stick, and they'll see that, hey, my numbers are way lower than what my hemoglobin A1C shows. That should be an indicator that there's a sort of a discordance there, and it could be red cell life, I think. And you're right, 5.2 versus 4.8. Is it? My last hemoglobin A1C was 5.2. I'm totally fine with that. I'm not worried about that. Whether it's 5.2 or 5.3 or 4.9, 4.8, to me, I'm like, that's fine for me. But anyway, so hemoglobin A1C. What else were you looking at?
Triglycerides.
I'm sorry. Yeah. HDL was 70s. What was it before? Was it lower than that at some point?
It was a lot lower. It was in the 40s and 30s.
Okay.
So it's up in the 70s.
So you've doubled it.
My triglycerides came all the way down to 45.
From what?
And they were well over 100, 150, 200.
Okay.
My weight, of course, dropped. At my heaviest, I was 220 for my 5'10" body frame. 5'11", 5'10", I shrunk an inch in my spine. And now I'm 160, 165 is where my body has landed. And I don't even have to try. I barely get on the scale, but every once in a while I get on and it's the same. The LDL, here we go. Are you ready? My LDL was always high familially. My parents, my brother, everybody supposedly had what they call high LDL, over 100. And mine was around 110 before I started carnivore and then carnivore. Now, my last blood work, I was 310. And then the very last blood work I just got back, I was 285 or 290. I forget the number. And I think because I stopped drinking unfiltered coffee, that affected it a little bit. But I'm not worried about that because my other markers are lower. I just got a coronary artery calcium score. I'm waiting for it to come back. I want to see what that number is. I paid for that out of pocket because my insurance wouldn't cover that, but it wasn't that expensive. So those are my main numbers. I got the whole list of all the other numbers. All my other numbers, my lymphocytes and all those things, everything is in the range. My B12 was very high for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, you're eating a lot of it, so that's why.
I'm not supplementing anything. So we could talk about supplements too, because I don't supplement except with electrolytes, basically. That's all I supplement with. So those are my main markers that I'm worried about. I do have a blood ketone meter that I used to test it more frequently when I was just keto. I have it. I have the strips, and I'll do it maybe once a month just for the hell of it to confirm. And I'll do it around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. My blood is around 75, 78. And my ketones are around over 0.5 to maybe 1.3. So it's always the same when I do it at the same time of the day. So just to confirm, I'm still in ketosis most of the time. And my blood on average is right around, and it's way below 100. I didn't test it after I eat, but I think I'm doing well.
Yeah, with the eating pattern you have, you're probably going to get the biggest glucose spike 4 to 6 hours after, something like that, just because of the way we slowly digest and break down protein and fat relative to carbohydrates. But I do want it because I think this is, and I know people have heard me talk about this a million times, but for the new listeners that may not have heard this before, I think we don't want to ignore a high elevated LDL cholesterol. I think that's just, to me, that's just a sign to, it doesn't mean you need to stop the diet and go on a statin or something like that, but it may mean you just need to get more information. And to your credit, you've done that with the CAC score or the coronary artery calcium scan. How much did it cost you, by the way, out of pocket? I'm just curious what the price is.
$140.
Okay, I paid $150 in California a few years ago when I had mine. Mine came back zero, and I was pretty obviously happy with that. But I think again, it's one of those things where we still don't know for sure if you can just say, I'm lean, I got low trigs, I got high HDL, my inflammation's low, my blood pressure's low, my glucose is go, my LDL is high, I can ignore it. I still don't think we're at the point where we can say just ignore it. We may get there. There's some studies in progress that may indicate that maybe we're getting to that point, and we'll just see how the things shake out once they're done. I'm sure you're familiar, Dave Feldman and Dr. Budoff out in the Los Angeles area are conducting a study on this, and so far the initial results are quite compelling. You're in this kind of lean mass hyper responder cohort, more or less, and they showed extremely low prevalence of cardiovascular disease, atherosclerotic disease on not just CAC score, but coronary angiography, which is CT angiography, which is even more discriminating. So good to know that data is coming out there. As far as I don't want to dismiss it because this isn't a very important thing. So many people have back pain. It affects you wearing a TENS unit. And for people who don't know, it's an electrical stimulator that basically tries to distract you from the nerve pain by sending this stimulation to do that. And so that means it was fairly severe. How is your back pain these days?
It's scale from 1 to 10. Before I was low carb and I basically lost the visceral fat. I lost the inflammation. Hopefully that's what it was, whatever it was. I would say my back pain was on a good day, 3 or 4, maybe 2, but on a bad day, way up at 10. I took a lot of Advil and Tylenol and back pain on a full stomach. And I know that they were horrible pills to take, but I just had to do something. And then I would wear the TENS unit and put it in the lower right where it hurt. And I would adjust it during the day because it distracted my mind. I would feel the electrical pulse instead of the lower back pain. Now it's a 0. It's a 10. Oh, let's see what it is. 0 is no pain.
0 is no pain.
Now it's a 0. 0 pain. If I'm pressure washing my driveway for 2 hours, I may get a 1 or a 2, and then it goes away by the time the later in the afternoon comes. So it's not completely gone. There's something going on down there in my lower spine. But without this inflammation from the standard American diet, which is what I think it was, it's almost completely gone most of the time. Same thing with my AFib. That and the emotion. I can't brag enough about how many improvements you get just by eating meat and not plants.
Yeah, because I didn't want to gloss. We touched on the AFib. You said you've been seeing the same doctor for 15 years or so, and he's clearly seen the weight loss and the number changes and all that stuff and the health changes. What has his response been? And have you shared with him, hey, I'm doing this all meat or high-fat ketogenic diet? What's been the interacting with your physician?
I lucked out with this doctor, Dr. Burke. He's in Delray Beach, Florida. He is amazing. He himself is lean and fit and healthy. He sometimes tries to compete with me. He goes, oh, you beat me in this score or you beat me in that score. We joke around. And he totally supports me. He still says he has to suggest that I go on a statin. I need to suggest that you go on a statin. I know that you wrote here last time, you'll never do it, but I think he has to write it in his notes that he recommended it. And I said, I understand that, but he supports me eating this way because he's seen it. He's seen the improvement from before, the weight loss, the attitude, and just all of the other improvements, except for the LDL. Now, mentioning the LDL and what you had just said, I don't know if it was Dave Feldman or somebody, I saw some kind of chart, a bar graph that if it gets too high, it goes past the point of health. But if it gets too low, it's also past the point of good health. Like these people that take statins and they reduce their LDL super low, that expands their mortality. So there's some kind of little bell curve or something about the high and the low and where the optimal is. They're doing all the research. And so I shared that with my doctor too. And so we have discussions. I'm really lucky to have a great doctor. He supports me.
Yeah, that is fortunate because it does help with compliance and success. Is if the doctor's out there telling you need to stop right away, you're going to kill yourself. It definitely, a lot of people will stop because of that. And whether that's good or bad is debatable. But yeah, I think if you look at mortality curves, we see that there's so many studies out there now. But there's clearly a lot of studies that show that with or without statins, there's a spot where mortality seems to be less, and it's higher than what many people like cardiologists would recommend. And when we start getting into, we want our LDL as low as possible, approaching zero, which some of them have that policy. So we want to get that LDL down to 30 or 40 or something ridiculously low, which no humans normally have. The question is, yes, you may avoid heart disease, but it's almost the same as saying you're not going to go have sore knees if we cut your legs off. Are you throwing the baby out with the bathwater to do that? And so it's one of those things that doesn't make sense or not, and I'm not sure that it does. Negative. Let's talk about some negatives. Any negatives? Right. Have you had any negatives going keto, carnivore, anything like that? Can you think of any negatives physically or socially or whatever?
Yeah. Along the way, there were bowel problems. I had constipation when I went keto. And I just learned I needed to up my fat content. I don't think I was getting enough fat. And then I also heard that if you have more salt, I salt to taste. I love my salt. I know when I have too much, but I also learned that salt draws in the water in your colon and helps you have more of a healthier bowel movement. So I make sure I have a nice amount of salt, but not for that reason, because I like it. And then I take magnesium citrate, which of all the different kinds of magnesiums, that one helps keep me regular. Some people, they would have a problem the other way. They would go too much. But magnesium citrate, I take every day for that reason, but also because of my AFib. I learned that I probably needed more magnesium. So I just do magnesium. Sometimes I'll do a glycinate when I go to bed to relax. So that would be it. And my bowels are stable and healthy now. But that was the issue when I was switched over. It was my bowels. My body just had to get used to it. Never had the other problem. Some people say they go diarrhea. I never had that issue, but I always had the constipation issue.
Yeah, it's mag citrate is a standard hospital order for people on an inpatient. They develop their bowels slow down, and again, it's called an ileus. And a lot of times, mag citrate is given because it's so effective at doing that. So that makes sense certainly. As far as what was I going to ask you about? Do you find that there's a lot of people that will, because they'll hear other people doing this, and I'm going to try adding things in. I want to add some fruit in. I want to add some sort of orange juice or white rice or honey. Is that ever something you've ever experimented with or thought about doing? Or is there any, I don't know if you have a need to, if you feel so great, it's like, why, other than just I'm bored and I want to try it. But any thoughts on that?
Not at all. I don't want to add any of that in. I don't have a desire to add it in. It's just carbs. Yeah. I don't want to add that in.
Fair enough. Yeah. And without the carbs, your brain can't work. You have no energy. You can't exercise. You can't do anything intensely. What has your experience been?
I'm on no carbs. I'm on zero. The only carbs I get are the glycogen in the meat, I think, and some lactose in some of my goat cheese. That's it. So if I don't have goat cheese for 3 or 4 days, I'm on no carbs. So how am I functioning? How is my blood sugar able to stay around 75, 85 if I have no carbs? And if people ask me, I'll tell them about the liver and how it makes just the amount of glucose that you need on demand to keep everything balanced. So that's my answer to them.
Yeah, it's just my brain turned off 8 years ago. It doesn't work anymore. Some people would agree. Some people would agree with that statement, but it's clearly you don't have to have carbs to function and quite well. And there's this sort of recent thing. If you're chronically depriving yourself on carbs and your body's going to go into this hyper cortisol type state, and again, that actually largely doesn't happen anyway. But this is another criticism for that. I don't know if most people have not tested their cortisol levels. It's a pretty unusual test to do. The ones I've seen on carnivore have generally been, I've had a few people that are super biohackers, and every time I've seen them, it's been pretty normal. It hasn't really been up or down too significantly. And I think that, again, that concern is hypothetical, and real world doesn't seem to support that for sure. What about, now you said you have a YouTube channel. I don't know what other social media you have. What inspired you to do that? How's that going? And share with us the names of those things.
Okay. When I retired, I wanted something to do. And I was a video production teacher for the last 15 years of my career. So I learned about lighting and sound and good video production. I sing. I love to sing. If I could go into another profession, I may have tried to become a singer. So I made some songs. And then when I retired, I thought, I need to share this way of eating with people. So I would start to talk like I would watch some of my other, like you do, and like other people do. So I started testing the waters, and I started a YouTube channel. First, I called it the Carb Addiction Teacher. Then I changed it to the Seed Oil Oxalate and Carb Addiction Teacher because I grew and progressed. And then I thought, let me just go back and be simple. And now I'm just the Carnivore Teacher. If you search any of those, my name comes up on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. I am the Carnivore Teacher or the Carb Addiction Teacher. And I have a lot of videos. I've made over 300 videos so far on the topics. If you go back to my older videos, they're more about keto. You could see my progression through time. I talk about how it's okay to have vegetables and which ones I eat. And then as you come closer to the present time, I'm talking mostly about how plants are trying to kill us and all of the toxins, the oxalate and all the stuff that's in plants. My videos are to inform and educate, and I don't sell any products or anything because I'm not here to make money. I'm here to do what other people have done for me. If someone can learn something from me and make their life better, that's great. That's why I became a teacher to begin with. So I'm still teaching through social media.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when we look at my profession as a physician or as a doctor, that is literally translates also into a teacher. And that's what we do a lot of that. Sharing your little anecdote about the mag citrate might help some other people with similar issues. So good on you for doing that. Have you, obviously you're retired, so that's pretty nice. Retired living in Florida. That's a pretty nice situation. I was thinking, I think Bob Sivis, who's also a carb addiction guy, I think he might even be near you. I think he has an office in Boca, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you've ever interviewed him or ran into him or familiar with his work. Is that something you've seen?
He's in Jupiter, Florida, which is about
up the road,
40-minute drive from Boca. He's a little up the road. Never got to meet Dr. Sivis, carb addiction doc. He's taught me so much about the lipoprotein system, and just I like his angle on things. But I haven't met him. Maybe one of these days. I met a couple of the other people. I met Dr. Berry, met Kim Howerton. Who else did I meet? I think I met somebody else from the list. But I know you were here last year. I was like, if I knew where he was, I'd run out and meet Dr. Baker. But I don't know where you were.
Next time I get out that way, we'll have to do that. Yeah, I think they have a low carb conference in Boca every year. I'm sure. I've never been.
They do. They just had it.
I suspect guys like Sivis and those will probably pop into that one since it's so convenient for them. But anything else that we did not get to share because we're getting close on time? Any other thoughts or concerns or things you'd like to share with the audience?
I don't. Just about supplements. People think they have to supplement because they're missing something when they go carnivore. And I tell them it's the opposite. You're getting all of your nutrition, your protein, and your fatty acids, and that you just need to make sure you salt to taste if that's what you like. And a lot of people need magnesium and potassium, a little extra maybe. You shouldn't need it, but I notice I get like shoulder pains when I exercise or walk. And if I just take a little extra potassium pills, just potassium, it goes away. So I don't do the avocados anymore, which has an enormous amount of potassium. So those are the only things I supplement with. So my added extra here would be you don't need to supplement except maybe electrolytes if you feel if your body's telling you signals that you need them.
Yeah, that's pretty much my situation. I generally don't take any supplements. I do drink an electrolyte drink just because I'm constantly sweaty. I'm in there wrestling with people and so on and so forth. And like I said, I got to go put some steaks on so I can eat. And it's been really nice talking with you, John. Good luck with your continued sharing this message because I think it's a healthy message and a lot of people need to hear. And your transformation, I'm sure, will inspire hundreds, if not thousands of people to do this, and this continues to grow. And like I said, I think it's got to be sad seeing so many like sick kids and sick adults around you and thinking, this is avoidable. Why we're persisting in this. So I think it's, you obviously, some people you just want to walk up to them and shake them. Hey man, stop putting you go to their grocery cart and say, you see that? Look, stop eating that garbage. But you can't do that. I guess you can't. I guess you might make a funny TikTok video out of it, but you'd probably get arrested in the end. All right, guys. Thanks everybody. We'll be back at 1 p.m. today. We have another interview, yet another success story. These keep coming, and I think they'll keep coming for years to come because people get healthy on this thing. John, thanks. The rest of you guys, thanks everybody. We'll see you.
Thank you,
later.
Dr. Baker.
Okay. Bye everybody. Take care.